Everybody, and welcome. It's Jim, it's Amadeus, and it is a day to be interested in a lot of things. But Amadeus, what we got on the soccer front today?
Yeah, so for soccer, we have just a few Champions League qualifiers finishing up before they get ready to do the draw for the group stage soon. Once we find out who finishes this, we got one match in the Copa Libertadores and one in the Copa Sudamericana for later, and then there's a giant slate of Carabao Cup matches in England, and other than that, there is not much going on in these other leagues.
So, kind of one more day to wait before Wednesday's usually our big day for soccer, and so we'll see how that work pans out for us. Explain, if you will, what the Caribou Cup is.
Yeah, so most leagues tend to have two cups. There's a league cup and the countries cup normally. Serie A is one that they I believe they used to have two. They used to have the Tim Cup and the Coppa Italia, but they got rid of the Tim Cup over the last few years, and now it's just the one cup. But yeah, so the Carabao Cup is, or also known as the EFL Cup, is basically the one of the cup matches in England. The FA Cup would be the other one, and yeah, basically, like France, for example, they have their Coupe de la Ligue and they have their Coupe de France. So yeah, one's just normally a league cup and the other one is a cup of the country. But yeah, this one is the Carabao Cup. That one usually gets done before the FA Cup starts. The
Mhm.
FA Cup is later in the year, and even the finals will be done long before the FA Cup finals. As we know, the FA Cup's usually at the end of the season. So yeah, this is just we're in the second round. So how it normally works is I believe it's the top eight who finished in the top eight of the Premier League. They get dropped directly into the round of 16, and the rest of the teams have to go into the draw. And yeah, so we have this is the second round today, and we're starting to see some Premier Leagues or some Premier League teams playing these matches. Now we got Swansea and Bournemouth is one. And, Swansea will be the home team for that one. There's Fulham and Tottenham, which is an all Premier League matchup. That's actually the only one on the board that is an all Premier League match up. And then we have Luton Town, who's obviously newly promoted side in the Premier League. They'll be at home to Gillingham. Brentford is on the road with Newport County. Crystal Palace is on the road against Plymouth. The Wolves are at home to Blackpool. That's actually one I do like, the Wolves by 2 goals there. Blackpool plays in the English League One. They were actually relegated from the Championship last year. So definitely not playing in the best form, and the Wolves will have some confidence coming off of their 1-0 away win at Everton over the weekend in the Premier League. They scored their second goal of the season, but they got their first points, and it was a win. So they'll have some confidence, and even if they rotate their squad here being at home, they have a lot more talent and depth than a team like Blackpool, who just got relegated from the Championship. So definitely that's one to watch. Everyone loves Ryan Reynolds. Wrexham is playing They're at home to Bradford, so they're a short favorite at -110. And yeah, that's about all of the ones for today. Tomorrow there are just a few, not as many as today, but Chelsea is at home to AFC Wimbledon and Nottingham Forest and Burnley. Nottingham Forest is at home to Burnley, so another one that's an all Premier League matchup. And then Sheffield United's at home to Lincoln City, and then Doncaster at home to Everton. So actually, quite a bit of Premier League teams going tomorrow as well.
Well, it's a couple of big stories the last 24 hours. One of them I thought was interesting, and that was that the Saudi League is trying to work a way to get into the Champions League. And it's difficult because the Saudis are, basically considered Asia. So they're trying to figure out how to get into, considered Europe so they can get into the cup. I would normally say under circumstances, well, good luck with that. But then again, when you've got the money that they've got, there is probably ways to work. And not that I'm saying that FIFA in any way, shape, or form could be, coerced into doing something, but it seems as though they're trying to find a way. And I have a strange feeling they might just be able to do that.
Yeah, I think with the money they have and the we know how much of a saint the organization of FIFA can be. So yeah, I'm sure that they'll definitely kibosh that one. But yeah, no, that it could happen, and I see where they're coming from, just because obviously we had Kareem Benzema go there. The Lens star Luis Openda went over there. Riyad Mahrez from Man City signed with a team in the Saudi Pro League. Even Neymar went over there. So there's all these big name
Right.
talents who are used to playing in European Champions League. So
Mhm.
I can absolutely see why they want to do that, and it would help them probably grow their league from that standpoint, because obviously they have the money to attract these big players. And if they had the European Champions League aspect as well, then of course you can attract players by saying, we're not only are you going to get paid big bucks, but you'll be able to compete in Champions League if
Right.
you're on one of the best teams in our league here. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Of course, now obviously FIFA, I'm sure they can be swayed by the money that the Saudis have. So it is an interesting thing, just because there are, like, Turkey, for example, is a country I would mention, just because Turkey really is half Asia and half Europe, and they even have the two teams in Istanbul. They call it the Intercontinental Derby, because it's two separate sides of Istanbul, but one's the side in Europe, and the other is the side in Asia. So, and Turkey is a team. The Turkish league, the Super League, is considered in Europe. Turkey's obviously a country in Europe, and so their teams like Galatasaray, they compete in the European Champions League. So I can see that maybe they want to try and do that. And there's, of course, like, before the ban was put on Russia, that's another one where a large majority geographically of Russia is in Asia, but it's considered European. So
Right.
they have somewhat of a case that they could present, and the money, and now the stars in their league to back it. So yeah, I think it's just going to be something to watch for sure.
Yeah, for sure. The interesting thing too there, I mean, Kazakhstan and Israel are allowed into the UEFA, and those were basically political situations where obviously neither of them are in Europe, but for political reasons, they did not want them to have to go and play in places that would not be, that could be very hostile to them. So, I think I'll even say that meaning the Saudis, will probably play that angle as well. Is that if we played in these other situations, it could be very hostile situations for us. So I mean, they'll pull out all the stops. I mean, this is not going to be, this is going to be a very well orchestrated play to make it in, and I certainly wouldn't bet against them.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a very good point to make, just because Kazakhstan is very far east when you look at the map, and they're there, I believe, with Armenia, and there's a few other that they play in Europe, and even you can throw Azerbaijan in that, and obviously we know Azerbaijan has that team I love, Karabag, and they play in the UEFA Champions League and Europa League competitions. So absolutely, the precedent is already established for sure. So Saudis definitely has a case here.
Yeah, well, we will see how that plays out in that regard. So there's that. Now, we haven't talked about it much because it's been a while, but how about this U.S. Open tennis coming up here?
Yeah, I've been seeing the boosts on my sports book for Felix and all the other Canadian scrubs who aren't going to do that well in the tournament, and I just laugh at that. But yeah, it's very exciting time. Obviously, I saw that there was I also saw there was two um, retirements in the tennis world. I saw Michael Ymer retired after his I guess doping scandal, and even Jack Sock, the American, decided to retire and is taking on another sport. I'm not quite sure. I didn't really look into it. Oh, he's pickleball, really the new craze of North America, where that's all I hear about now up here is just pickleball this and pickleball that.
It's loud.
It is loud. There's actually been a lot of complaints because a lot of the tennis courts around where I am have added the pickleball lines, and the communities have been complaining about it because it is very loud and disruptive.
I live about 35 yards from what used to be a tennis court, which is now a pickleball court.
Yeah, it's taken over.
It's so I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning with the windows open and the breeze coming through, you can hear the pang, pang, pang of the pickleball, it's like if you've never seen pickleball, it's like an oversized ping pong racket. Okay. The racket's big. It's solid. So there's no give in it. And you're hitting what in essence, those of us who grew up playing wiffle ball, which is a hard plastic ball, you use a plastic bat. And in the wiffle ball type, it's that type of ball. It's a little harder than a wiffle ball, but so you got a hard ball, a hard paddle, and a hard surface. So anything you do is going to make noise. But then again, they've invented LeBron James and some, phenomenally Tom Brady. A bunch of athletes have invested in pickleball teams. There's actually now a professional pickleball league, and they've got a TV contract. So, it's I think McEnroe called it, lazy man's tennis. But
yeah, it's taken over North America by storm.
It's definitely going crazy. But
and I gotta say, if you don't know what pickleball is, I think you hit it right on the nose there. It's basically tennis court, ping pong paddle, and a hard, heavier wiffle ball, and that's about all you need to know about this.
You can take one tennis court, and if you turn it around, kind of like that way, so it's cross court instead of lengthwise, you can cut that court into 3 pickleball courts.
Yeah.
I hope they don't do that outside. The fact of the matter is you could do that. So that gives you an idea of the size of the court. It's, you cut a tennis court into thirds, you've got 3 pickleball. So clearly there's not that much room to have to run and chase and all that. So anyway, that's more about pickleball than I think anybody cared about. But anyway, no, this has been an interesting thing. I haven't really seen any odds-on favorites in the women's side of the draw of the U.S. Open. It seems this one might be a little more wide open than some of the others, but we'll see how that plays out. The men's side is probably, the men's side is Djokovic in the field, but we'll see.
Yeah, we have basically it's Swiatek at plus 225, and then Sabalenka at plus 400, Goff at plus 550, and then Rybakina and Pegula and all these other, but that's now you're getting up into the odds there. So definitely, Swiatek is the favorite, as she usually is. And on the men's side, as you said, it's Djokovic as a nice minus 110. Alcaraz as a plus 175, and then the third guy in there is Medvedev at plus 900. So you can see there's a massive drop off between the top 2 and the rest of the field
and the gang, and the group. Interesting stuff with regards to, we can downshift if you want to into baseball. Um, the interesting thing is that most teams have about 30 games to play. We've come to that point in time on here, the 29th day of August, where the season ends in basically a month and a day. And so it's going to be a sprint to the finish in Major League Baseball. And I, for one, am excited to see how these things play out, because we went over it yesterday. There's just so much that can be, in so many places and so many things that can be done to get you to that point. So should be fun. Should be a fun a fun 30 days.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild race to the finish, especially when, a week ago we were talking about maybe the Mariners can slip into the final wild card spot and kick the Blue Jays out. Now we're talking about the Mariners winning the division and the Blue Jays are just nowhere in the conversation. So absolutely, it's going to be a sprint to the finish line.
It's going to be, I imagine from your standpoint, this is one of those things where you really kind of, this is the time of year that you really earn your spurs in that regard, because you really just have to hone in on what is going on. Because I mean, at this point in the season, guys have been beaten around a little bit. I mean, you've got some kids who started the season, pitching wise, who have never been this far in their career as far as innings pitched. So there's so many additional things to take into account. And then, we see, like you just mentioned, the Mariners. The Mariners were on a 9-1 run. And, teams that go on runs at this time of the season, usually when they head it, or you don't want to even see them, let alone play them.
Yeah, they're all of a sudden, their offense is clicking, their pitching is clicking, everything is just clicking for them. And then you look at like a team like the Rangers, who have led basically the AL West the whole time, and now I believe you mentioned they were 1-9 the last 10 games, and yeah, even if they lose out on the division and keep their wild card spot, obviously, because they've been on such great pace all year, they're still going to be sitting there like as a cold team going into the playoffs. And you have to wonder, do they just fizzle out in the first round, or do they continue to stay hot? Obviously, we saw the Phillies were that team last year that gained a lot of steam as they were going into the playoffs, and sure enough, it carried them all the way to the World Series. And we had those other teams that they were good consistent teams all year, but they weren't hot necessarily going into the playoffs, and they just fizzled right out.
It's I was just quickly checking the schedule, and September 14th, you've got on Thursday, September 14th, Friday, September 15th, 16th of September, and 17th of September, a 4-game series at Camden Yard between the Rays and the Orioles. That will be let's assume for the moment that they stay games or 3 games of each other. That 4-game series at Camden Yard is going to be really, really important. And then I'm trying to see where they go. They don't play each other again. That's it. So back when, what was it, 2 years ago, or no, 1 year ago, they played 19 games, and now they have that unbalanced schedule, and you don't see them as often. So the Rays will be at Camden Yards for a 4-game series on the 14th, starting the 14th of September. That probably is going to be a determining factor in that situation. From a schedule standpoint, it's Texas Rangers play, let's see, Seattle That would be the Rangers in Seattle, September 22nd. So they've got a 22nd, 20. Actually, they play each other. They play each other 6 more times.
Okay, so
So
that's probably 3 game series.
yeah, they play 2 3 game series. The first one's going to be in Arlington, and the second one's going to be in Seattle. And so, and also the Astros play the Rangers again, and then they play the Mariners again. So, you know, each team will have an opportunity to, to really get, a chance to win it, as they say, on their own. They don't really need to, hope for, go scoreboard watching and hope because everybody, that they get a little help from their friends. They'll be able to at least have a, especially that series between Rangers and the Mariners where they play each other 6 times. That definitely is an opportunity. And then Rays and the Mariners, the Rays and the O's play each other at Camden Yard. So it's going to be interesting. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they come down the stretch. Let me go over real quick the games tonight. We'll start with we got 3 6:40 games. Angels at Phillies in Philadelphia. Anderson's pitching for the Angels. Lorenzen is pitching for Philadelphia.
Familiar face for the Angels there.
Yeah, I was going to say Anderson didn't pitch for the Phillies at one point. Okay. Rays Marlins. Savelli is pitching for the Rays, and Alcantara. So Sandy Alcantara and Savelli is pitching tonight. So that's the Rays at the Marlins. That's a 2-game series. Yankees are still in Detroit. They're going to have King on the hill.
And yes, the Yankees are still an underdog.
Oh, man. Skubal is pitching for Detroit. Okay. The Orioles host the Pale Hose. The White Sox are in town. Shotens is pitching for the White Sox. Baltimore's Kremer. Washington, the red hot Washington Nationals are in Toronto for the Jays. And the Jays, the Nationals are going to start Gore. The Toronto's got Berrios. Astros, Red Sox. Francis for Houston. Boston has Bello. Rangers, Mets, it's a 7-10 start. Haney is pitching for Texas. Quintana pitching for the Mets. 7:40 start. Guardians, Twins. That game will have Williams for Cleveland, Lopez for Minnesota. Padres, Cardinals. Padres have Seth Lugo on the hill. Mr. Thompson gets the ball for St. Louis. Brewers, Cubs. Another game of that big series. Burns pitching for Milwaukee, Steele for Chicago. Pirates, Royals. Pittsburgh, I have no idea because it says TBD on the hill for them. Reagan's pitching for Kansas City. The Braves are Rockies.
I do have a pitcher for the Pirates.
Okay.
It just refreshed on me though. It says C. Selby.
Okay. All right. Charlie Morton pitching for Atlanta tonight. Lambert pitching for the Rockies. The Athletics and the Mariners. Waldachuk pitching for Oakland. Kirby is pitching for Seattle. You've got the Cincinnati Reds and San Francisco Giants. We said yesterday that is definitely going to be one that, because they're both fighting for the wild card spot. That, by the way, if you're a subscriber to the MLB Network, that will be the their late game, which they do on Mondays. Williamson pitching for Cincinnati, and Alex Cobb pitching for San Francisco. And the late game tonight is the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. That game being played in Los Angeles at Chavez Ravine. Kelly pitching for Arizona, and the lefty himself, Clayton Kershaw, hits the ball for the Dodger Blue. So that's our scoreboard for today. There are no scores on it yet. There won't be any scores on it until 6:40. But anyway, you now know who is playing in Major League Baseball today. And as we said, it's going to be a crazy run to the playoffs. And we'll take a quick look just to refresh your memory on the standings. And Baltimore leads Tampa Bay by 2.5 games. Toronto is 10.5 out in the East. Boston is 13.5 out. The Yankees are 19 games out of first place. Minnesota is up 7 on Cleveland and 9.5 on Detroit. The White Sox are 17 games off the pace. Kansas City is 28.5 games behind Minnesota. Seattle leads Texas and Houston by a game. The Angels by 12.5 and Oakland by 37.5 games. Oof. Atlanta has a 12.5 game lead on Philadelphia. I would consider that safe. Miami, 19.5 games. Washington, 25 games out. And the Mets are in last place, 26 games off the pace. They've won 60 games this season so far. Milwaukee, 5 games over the Cubbies. Cincinnati, 7 games back. So Chicago can't lose more games to Milwaukee. They got 2 more games in Milwaukee. They got to be careful because they could really tumble out of the race, not only for the Central but for the wild card. The Dodgers.
Yeah, they already lost last night, so they really they gotta get moving tonight. That's for sure.
Can't afford that one. The Dodgers are 13 games up on Arizona. I think we can wrap that one up. San Francisco is only a half game out of second place at 13.5 games back. The underachievers of the year, the San Diego Padres, 20 games back, and the Colorado Rockies staring up at first place by 32.5 games.
More like underachievers of the decade. ever since 2020, when they started spending all that money, it's just been disappointment after disappointment.
Yeah, and they have spent a lot of money. There's no question. Real quick we talked about the wild cards yesterday, but let's just refresh your memory on it. In the American League, the wild card is Tampa Bay. They are 5.5 games in that first slot. Texas is tied with Houston. Toronto is just 2.5 games back. Boston's 5.5 games back. So that's, theoretically, if you're a Red Sox fan, you still got a shot. If you're a Blue Jays fan, you still got a shot. Okay, now we get the Phillies are 4.5 games up in the first place spot. The Cubs are clinging to a half game in that second slot over Arizona. San Francisco is just a half a game out. Cincinnati's a game and a half out. Miami's only 2.5 games out. So you can throw a beach blanket over 6 teams there, and that definitely bodes well for one heck of a series of events coming up here as the baseball season winds to a close.
It's a really tight race in the NL, and a lot of it is just teams that are like 4 games that range over 500.
Mm-hmm. And Chicago has the team to do it. I mean, they could get in there, but they just don't seem to be able to get there at the right time. They're not playing consistent enough ball to be there. So you got to do what you got to do, but that's not really helping them by any stretch of imagination. I think there's the key there is just trying to see what they can do and try to sneak in, but it's not going to be an easy thing to do. That's for darn sure. They're playing well, but they're not playing that well at this point in time. They got to get their act together because they're playing the games in Chicago. So when we're talking Milwaukee here, it's not like they're in the friendly confines, which at this particular point in time do not seem as friendly as they could be in that realm. So
and as you said, with like the inconsistencies, like last series they won 2 out of 3 against the Pirates. They scored 10 runs in 2 of those games, but you lose that other game, right? And then there was a series before that were the same thing. They won the series against the Tigers, but like those are series you need to sweep at this time of the year.
Now, you bring up a very good point, and that is winning series are good. Okay, that's not a bad thing, but you have to get on what Seattle just did. You have to knock out a 9-1, and go maybe 15-13 or 15-11 or something like that. You're gonna have to play 600 plus ball the rest of the way if you're gonna catch, and you gotta hope that the other teams don't play and match it. If you look at what has happened, we plotted it out. The Orioles and the Rays, okay? The Orioles and the Rays have been in first and second place since the third game of the season. Neither of them have been out of, the Orioles have never been lower than second place. The Rays have never been lower than second place. The actual difference is 5 games. That's it. 5 games over the entire season thus far that the Orioles won when the Rays lost. Put them up now 2.5 games. So that just goes to show you how, close things can be over the course of a 161 game season, and how important a particular series might be. And so I think that if you're a playoff team, a potential playoff team, you want to start. This is then the time you want to start getting things going. And as I say, from your standpoint as a handicapper, you're looking at pitching matchups, I would assume, and looking at guys and say, okay, this guy is, how many he's in his first season in the bigs, or what was his best year as far as innings wise. I mean, you got a guy like Zach Eflin or somebody like that. I mean, they've thrown 200 innings forever. I mean, their arm could fall off from a standpoint of they can always pitch. But then you've got some of these kids that have just come up. They've never pitched this far. Are they capable of going to the end of September and getting their team across the finish line? And I think that I don't know. I know that handicappers pay attention to it. I don't know necessarily the baseball fans pay attention to that. And also, how taxed has the bullpen been? How many of these starters have gone more than 5 or 6 innings? If you've got a bullpen that's logged a ton of innings, then that's going to be a problem on the backside there too.
Yeah, definitely. You see it a lot around this time of year, just because there's guys out there that have been, killing it in the months of June and July. Like Taijuan Walker is a great example. He was a guy, he wasn't giving up anything. It was like at most 1 or 2 runs for 2 straight months. Now, as soon as we've hit August, he's still pitching well, but you're starting to give up more runs now. Now it's more like 3 and 4 runs a game. And these are things you have to definitely watch going into the playoffs. Because as you said, he's got a whole season on his arm now. He's been so good for so long. Like there's going to be a point when he unravels. And when he does finally unravel, it's going to be about, does he have the mental game to bounce back and get back on that good pitching streak he was earlier in the season? Or is it going to be one of those things where we see guys just unravel and they can't get it back together? Like I believe Zach Wheeler was a guy last year.
Yeah.
As far as the Phillies went, he was great at the beginning of the season. As they got deeper into the playoffs, he was a guy. Nola was carrying the team, and Wheeler was just unraveling in those playoff games.
Right, and you've got a situation where with some of these guys that you just like Wheeler, these pros. Justin Verlander the other night threw, a really good game for the Astros, and he didn't strike out a lot of people because he was smart enough to know, because he is a veteran pitcher and won the Cy Young twice. Smart enough to know I can hit bats. Okay. If I can make them hit my pitch as opposed to them hitting their pitch, I I don't care if they hit the ball to shortstop. I don't care if they fly the ball out. Who cares? Okay. I'm getting them out. I'm not pitching 100 and, I'm not going into the hundreds in my pitch count. I'll just let them hit the ball as long as they hit my pitch. And if you are a Verlander, which there are very few who can do that, then good on you. Max Scherzer, who's over in Texas, has not been as lucky as Verlander in that he has not necessarily, he's pitched well, but he's the old Max of grind it out, get you to 7 innings. He'll get you to 7 innings. He'll get strikeouts, okay? But that wears on his arm. Verlander, on the other hand, doesn't care about the strikeouts. He'll let that go. But his goal is to try to get you to hit his pitch. And I think therein is the difference between two veterans and how they're getting there. Max will get the Rangers to the finish line, okay? Verlander will get Houston to the finish line, whether it's in the playoffs, as a playoff team or as a division title champion, okay? It's what's Verlander got and what's Scherzer got on their arm left once they get into the playoffs that concerns. And that's what happened 2 years in a row for Max when the Dodgers got in the playoffs and he was pitching for them. After about the first start, he had pretty much a dead arm the rest of those through those series. So it's you just have to watch. Even guys like on the upper echelon of the game, like Verlander and Scherzer, the approaches that they take to get to where they are is sometimes very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, that's an issue that Max has dealt with the past few years. Hasn't really done much to fix that going into the playoffs, because obviously, like you said, he's still that strikeout kind of guy. But it helps Verlander in the long run. And obviously, we saw the Houston Astros win the World Series last year, and they've been so successful as a team in general over the last few years. So definitely, I think that speaks volumes in itself.
Yeah, and we'll see how. I'm hoping that we get to see the Mariners in the playoffs. I think that would be. I think that would be great. I know they've tried, year after year to get there, and they haven't had a great deal of success. But for them to win the division or to get into the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs, it's a great fan base in Seattle. They love to play. They love their team, and I would like to see the Mariners get there. What are your thoughts? I know you're on the Mariners. You like the Mariners. Do you think whether they win or not, the actual division is doesn't really it matters, but getting into the playoffs and being the hot team, they've been the hot team recently. What do you think? Do you think they can keep up that pace?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially since we've harped a lot on how it's the hot team that makes these deep runs late in the season. So and it's the Mariners are a team I've loved all year, really. I said they would, if they can just come out of the All-Star break hot, get on a roll, they can do wonders. And sure enough, they've been nothing but hot since the All-Star break. They've shot themselves up into a position where they can win the division now. And I think it is going to be a tough race, just because it's a 3-team race in that division,
Right.
and it's going to be a sprint right to the finish line. But even if they slip in as a wild card team as opposed to winning the division, I think the way they've been playing and how hot they are, they definitely have the potential to be like a Phillies from last season.
I think I think your point there is very good. Is that the Phillies of last year? These are you want to beat them because they're dangerous and they're playing with house money. Because all season long it didn't look like they were going to get there, and they don't care if they win the division. They don't have to win the division. You can win a World Series, and I think that as long as their pitching can stay healthy, I think that's something that really we can look at and go, okay,
Yeah, and the thing with these teams that get hot too, they always have some kind of adversity. Like the Phillies fired their coach halfway through the season last year, and then they went on that big run. The Mariners decided we're going to sell our closer, and then they go on the big run. So like that's what I mean. They've battled the adversary, and actually the guy they've got to replace Sewell. I think it's Munoz. He's been really well. He's been pitching really well as a closer. So maybe that was something where they knew we really have two closers on our team, so we'll sell one and we'll let Munoz take over.
It wouldn't be the first time somebody's done that. I remember Jonathan Papelbon got traded at the deadline one time, and they're like going crazy. Why did you get rid of Papelbon? Well, guess what? We can get we can get to the playoffs and beyond without having him. So it works both ways if you know what you're doing, and clearly they do. And we'll have to see. I mean, we'll definitely have to see how it works. But I don't know. I think it's really a lot of fun to watch the Mariners get there, and just to get some different teams in for a change. It's nice to see. My gosh, the Orioles. It's been, Buck Showalter might have been that. By the way, I don't know about you. Do you think? I keep hearing that Buck may very well be out at the end of there. We talked yesterday about Aaron Boone. New York may have two openings at the managerial spots at the end of the season, because if the Yankees and the Mets finish in last place, both of them, I wouldn't want. Well, I'll tell you what. I had the true joy, and when I say that, some people are going to go nuts, of knowing the boss, George Steinbrenner. He was for some reason we got along very well, and he would have fired everybody by this point. There wouldn't have been a bench coach, a pitching coach, a manager. I mean, he'd had an entirely different coaching staff up there in New York.
He'd be down in the dugout himself, man.
Oh, he would have been apoplectic at this point. Basically, Cashman's next line would be, "Do you want fries with that?" I mean, he would have been thrown. Everybody would have been thrown out. So I don't know, but it came up yesterday when in conversation, and somebody said, "Well, what do you think about Buck?" I'm like, "Well, he's in last place. That's not a good thing to be." And optics in New York are always difficult, and if you've got the Yankees and the Mets on the if nothing else, battling for last place, they don't have to finish there, but battling for last place. The amount of money those two teams spent, your win per dollar is not going to be very good. So I could see Buck. I mean, as much as I like Buck, I could see him getting fired with the Mets. So you'll have to see. But it's it's been a tough year. And of course, last year, they played. They were the team to beat in the East, and times changed pretty quickly. But what didn't change was the payroll, and I think that's where the two teams are kind of sitting back going, how did this happen? I don't even begin to figure that one out. By the way, in an odd TV situation, but it's an interesting one, the Boston Bruins, who are owned by the Nesson Group, which also owns other properties.
And their own broadcasting.
Network, yes. Own the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they made the announcement yesterday that there will be a Nesson Pittsburgh, and that the Nesson, as we know, which is a absolutely great regional sports network, will be airing Pens games in Pittsburgh, and they're in negotiations at the moment with the Pirates so that they can bring Pirate games to to that RSN. And so Nesson is looking to expand their brand. They own a soccer team, don't they? Don't they own Liverpool?
Do they own Liverpool? I'm actually.
That's the Fenway Sports Group. It's the Fenway Sports Group.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then they.
Let me look. I think John Henry owns the Liverpool, right?
Yeah, there's quite, or it might be. I think it's Crystal Palace, maybe.
Oh, hang on a second. Our crack research team is on it.
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of these English soccer teams, like they're owned majority wise by one group, and it's like there's sometimes there can be some like a few different ownerships in there.
Right. It's not just one. It's an ownership group. The Fenway Group owns. Interesting. Here we go. The Fenway Group owns multinational holdings in NASCAR, a NASCAR team, the Red Sox, Liverpool,
Okay,
and the Penguins. There you go. So the Penguins, the Red Sox, Liverpool, a NASCAR team,
and soon to be Pirates.
And the soon to be, the television rights of the.
Well, someone's got to take the TV rights, Jim. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the MLB puts a wedge in there and says, you know what? Take a few other teams while you're at it.
Yeah, here's 10 or 20 you can have.
We need some broadcasting, please.
Yeah, I think the Major League Baseball will definitely be taking over a bunch of these teams' broadcast rights because of the fact that Diamond Sports, which is the holding company who owned Bally's, the regional sports, and AT&T, who owned the other group of regional sports, Nets are in bankruptcy. So the league will take it over. That does not count, by the way. Nesson, which is not in bankruptcy, Yes Network, the Yankees, not in bankruptcy. SNY, which is the Sports New York, which is the Mets group, is in that, and Masson, which is the Orioles and Nationals. Those and Dodgers. I'm sorry, the Dodger deal. They all are profitable organizations. The rest of them are not. So let's say there's a handful of networks that own the properties, and they're doing okay. But it's the vast majority of the regionals aren't. And so I think the direct-to-consumer aspect of it in television is going to come pretty soon, which is exactly what the MLS is. It's a direct-to-consumer network. So we'll see how that plays out. But at the end of the day, the Fenway Group owns Liverpool. I thought they did, but I wasn't 100% sure. So thanks to our crack research team and the Google machine for pulling that up for us. And very cool. So any final thoughts before we get out of here on a Tuesday when wait a minute, we have a comment. Foxy. How's it going, guys? Newcastle bottled it this weekend. There you go.
Yeah, Liverpool's the one roadblock they can't seem to get by. It's disappointing because Liverpool's defense really isn't that good. They had the scoring opportunities in that one too. I myself had the over 3, so I pushed with that because of those 2 late goals. But that red card really messed up the. I thought it was going to be a more competitive match, and then that red card really messed up the flow. But then Newcastle wasn't able to do anything, and Darwin Nunez just ruined the day for Foxy. So
there you go. Well, buddy, what are you going to do? All right, well, Amadeus's work is directly in the show box below. Be sure to go there and visit. You, sir, give us your plugs for the day so people know where to get. There's still some time to get in there and take advantage of your fine work.
Yeah, you can get my plays at bigal.com and pickadvisor.com. I had 2 plays up for the Carabao Cup that have already started, but I have one for Copa Sudamericana later tonight, and I have one MLB play, which is my NL Central total of the year. So go
There you
check
go.
that one out.
All right. Well, from Amadeus, I'm Jim. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, and be safe out there. Take care.